I feel a sense of responsibility to share how out-of-network benefits work because there's just so much just mystery around it, right? And so I love these podcasts because we're able to actually break it down, do the math for people, and walk them through it.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 356 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer. So glad you've joined us, and hope you'll take time to follow us wherever you might be listening to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if you're coming back for more, glad you're back. And so we're up to episode number 356. I was just kind of reflecting on that and just thinking, wow, I've had a lot of episodes since I started this podcast, and I've fortunately gotten to have conversations with so many wonderful people. And the one today is a great conversation I had with Sanjana Satya. And Sanjana is one of the people behind Thrizer. And if you've not heard about Thrizer yet, Thrizer.com, you're going to learn more about that and how we can use Superbills for helping those people that are either out of network, or if you're a cash pay practice, how you can use Thrizer to help you attract more clients that might want to use their insurance for their services. So looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Sanjana. But before we get to that, one of the things I've been working on here lately is updating my free private practice startup guide. It's a freebie that I give out on my website just by signing up and joining my email list. And it's a little outdated, and I recognize that. But one of the things that would be really helpful for me is if you don't mind to let me know some things that with the question, what I wish I had known when I started my practice was, and then fill in the blank. And if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/what I wish, that's the pretty link that I've created that'll take you to a Google form. If you'll go over and just answer that question for me, because one of the things that I'm constantly trying to do is figure out what are the things that people are looking for? What are the things that people need the most help with in their practices? It's the whole reason that I started the Practice of Therapy, and the whole reason behind this podcast is to have conversations about those things that come up for people. And as many of us know, especially those of us that have been doing this for a while, there's no exactly right way to do things, but there's usually just numerous different ways to do things. And so that comes up a lot. And so anyway, I invite you to go over and just take that simple survey where it's just you simply answer that question. What I wish I had known when I first started my private practice was, and just fill in the little paragraph there. And so be sure and check that out. Also, as we move into the holiday season and you're trying to think of some gift ideas, maybe for your staff or colleagues, check out mentalhealthwaretn.com. It's a store that my friend Ashley has put together, and I've been working with her behind the scenes and getting that up and going. And it's she's got just some wonderful T-shirts and tumblers and different things that related to our profession and also mental health and addiction recovery. So be sure and check that out. And if you'll use the promo code, just simply TAKE20, you can get 20% off your first order. So check that out. It's something I'm excited about for her and really trying to help her get that store up and going. She's putting just a lot of work into it and just really has come up with some really unique designs. And also, if you want something customized, she can do that as well. If you want a name added or your practice name, or even if you want T-shirts with your practice logo on it, we can do that. So be sure and check it out, mentalhealthwaretn.com. And also, before we get to my conversation with Sanjana, I'd love for you to hear more from one of our members of the PsychCraft Network, along with a word from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. You know, when starting a private practice as a therapist, counselor, or life coach, things can feel a bit overwhelming. You're unsure where to start, what to focus on, or how to grow things. I've been in private practice now for over 18 years, and a lot has changed. I've helped countless clinicians avoid a lot of the common pitfalls and build successful practices that align with their values and lifestyle. My coaching and consulting services are all about giving you a focused plan, helping you set clear priorities, and understand exactly where to invest your time, energy, and money. We'll work on defining your niche and then how to market it, ensuring that you build a practice that's both impactful and enjoyable. I'll also teach you the business skills they don't cover in grad school, from financial planning to implementing systems that make your practice run smoothly, like a well-oiled machine. In addition, I can help you find ways to diversify your income streams and create financial stability for long-term growth. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your practice to the next level, I'm here to guide you in every step of the way. Let's work together to turn your vision into a thriving, fulfilling reality. To apply and find out more, just go to practiceoftherapy.com/coaching and consulting. That's practiceoftherapy.com/coaching and consulting. And also you can book a free 15-minute discovery call with me to talk about your goals and vision. I look forward to hearing from you.
Hey there, Daniel Fava here, and if you don't know me, I'm the host of the Private Practice Elevation podcast, where I share online marketing strategies and interviews to help private practice owners attract more clients and scale their businesses. The Private Practice Elevation podcast is part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts, and I'm super excited to be a part of this network alongside Gordon and the great work he's doing. If you haven't discovered the Private Practice Elevation podcast yet, you can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd love for you to join me as we explore topics like building an effective website for your private practice, search engine optimization, content marketing, and copywriting, as well as my conversations with experienced private practice owners about scaling a practice, outsourcing, team leadership, and all things that will help you elevate your business and create the life you love. Be sure to check us out at privatepracticeelevation.com for resources and content to help you in your online marketing journey.
Ready to upgrade your practice from a rusty bicycle to a shiny new sports car? Buckle up, because TherapyNotes is here to turbocharge your journey. It's the comprehensive practice management system you've been craving, equipped with everything you need to navigate patient records, schedule seamlessly, host remote sessions, craft detailed notes, and tackle insurance billing with ease. And guess what? It's your trusty sidekick, available whenever and wherever duty calls. Picture having more quality time with your clients, all thanks to this digital assistant that never clocks out. Here's the kicker. It's Gordon approved, so you can trust it's the real deal. Bid farewell to paperwork headaches and embrace a new era of efficiency and top-tier care. Ready to level up your private practice game? Swing by practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and punch in promo code GORDON for 2 months on the house. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really happy for you to get to know Sanjana Sathya. And we've practiced her name, and hopefully I got it right there, Sanjana, from Thrizer. So as I start with everyone, Sanjana, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have always been a huge advocate for mental health. So it's kind of really my personal journey that led me here. In the past before Thrizer, I've been a part of other healthcare and tech companies, and it kind of felt like the right, professional marrying of the two. But really my personal experience has been that, I've been an anxious person as long as I can remember. Like, it's just who I am. It's been who I am. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I went to therapy for the first time myself and got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So that's where I was like, oh, so there's this thing, right? And there's something that I have to navigate through. It's not something I can just shun and push away. It's really a part of who I am. And that's where my journey with therapy began. And so I, went to consistent therapy, still go to therapy, and really saw the value of that. But at the same time, I was seeing an out-of-network provider who, would issue Superbills, and I would try to submit them, get the reimbursement, and failed. And I never heard back from insurances, kind of went into this black box. And it was tough to be able to sustain therapy because I wanted to continue with her, but financially it became a burden. That's kind of around the time that I heard about Thrizer as well. So I actually used Thrizer as a client first. My co-founder, Ronak, is the one who founded it back in 2022. He had a very similar story to me of going to therapy for a long time and navigating Superbills. And he just kind of got fed up and was like, if I'm dealing with this, then everyone else is, right? And I was like, yes, well, for sure I'm dealing with it. And so that's really what brought me to Thrizer. And it's, I've been here for about a year now, and it's just been the best experience. And it's definitely something that I care a lot about. Therapy has been so impactful in my own life, and I would love for everyone who wants to access it to be able to without finances being the reason that they can't.
Right. Yeah, I love that story, and I think what you speak to is, having been in practice myself for, oh gosh, nearly 18 years now. One of the things that we do run into is people that are, wanting to use insurance, which most of us all that have our health insurance, we want to be able to use it, particularly for therapy and mental health issues, but it's not always possible for the therapist to be able to be in network. And so, and this is something I talk about in my mastermind groups, just about using Superbills as a way to allow people to pay you directly, but then giving them a Superbill to possibly get reimbursed by their insurance company. And so, yeah, I love this concept, and you're right. I think a lot of people run into problems with that. So, feed us your knowledge.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
all of this. Yes.
Yeah, it's, I think as I've joined Thrizer, I've really gotten to have so many conversations with therapists to learn about their experience. And you're absolutely right. Like, being in network when insurance doesn't support you, whether that's, all the admin work, whether that's the low reimbursement rates, there is just clawbacks and audits. And there's just so many things that just make it impossible, honestly, for a therapist to stay in network for the course of their career. At some point, people will consider going out of network. At the same time, if we're trying to say, hey, we want to keep mental health and therapy be accessible, we really have to lean on things like out-of-network benefits. And it's honestly a pretty reliable, mode of financial help if we're able to figure out a system that works. And Superbills, I get this question a lot. It's like, I provide my clients with Superbills. Like, why do we need Thrizer, right? And the reason is that like, first of all, clients don't want to deal with insurance, right? If they're already seeking care and they're, taking time out of their days to be able to say, hey, I want to be there with my therapist. I want to focus on my growth. It can feel really intimidating and scary, honestly, to say, hey, now I have to request a super bill. I have to figure out where to put it in the insurance portal. You don't get a confirmation email when you submit a super bill, right? So it's not like, hey, we received it and we're working on it. There's no way to track your claim online, right? And if you're trying to get on a call with insurance, you're going to be put on hold. You might find someone who'll tell you your claim status, but they really won't. First of all, you won't even know, like, how much am I going to get back in reimbursement? Because that's very much a coveted, black box. And finally, after maybe the claim gets approved, you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for that check in the mail, right? And then you have to make sure the check doesn't get lost. And then you have to deposit it. It's just can feel really overwhelming and complicated. And I feel like even if a therapist provides a super bill, a client might say, hey, insurance is not going to have my back. I'm not even going to submit a super bill, right? Because it can just feel like this long process. And down the line, when, even in the beginning, if they're able to afford the therapist rate, maybe down the line, 6 months, 12 months in, you're like, hey, actually, now I feel like the financial burden is catching up and I want to stop therapy. And I think my big hunch is people stop therapy because they can't afford it. I don't think it's because they're not getting value out of it, right? And so that's where, Thrizer comes in to really try to help all of this. And at every point, kind of, I pointed out the journey for a client. There's a friction point every way, every point of the way. So that's what we'd really try to address to make it super easy for them, and also have it be a tool for clinicians to be able to say, hey, I'll help you navigate it for you because I have Thrizer, and they'll take care of everything for you. All you really have to do is show up to sessions and that's it. So that's pretty much, kind of our mission, to make everything super seamless.
Yeah, I love that concept. And I think it's also, if we think about it, by providing that through Thrizer, we're providing our clients a very valuable service, and that they're not having to do the legwork of trying to contact their insurance company about submitting the super bill and then not knowing what's going to happen with everything. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm curious on the therapist side of things, and how does it generally work if we want to provide super bills to people, and what's the process, at least through Thrizer?
Yeah. So typically a therapist is able to provide a super bill from their EHR, right? There's a lot of EHRs these days have this feature where they're able to just easily export a super bill. And at that point, the client would need to submit it to insurance. So what we found is that there's kind of two ways that a therapist typically likes to help their clients. One is a little bit more high touch, and other one is like, hey, I want to be hands off, but I do want to provide a resource to my clients, right? So the first one is our payment platform. And so if they want to provide courtesy super bill uploads for their, clients, that's the right option for them. And then we also actually let clients just pay a copay in that world. So to break it down further, essentially, a therapist would use Thrizer's payment platform to charge their clients after sessions. The benefit of doing so is that an out-of-network claim is automatically submitted to insurance as soon as they charge a client. So there's no need to provide their client with a super bill and have them submit it. We manage the claims end to end. So, if, insurance is like, hey, we need more follow-ups from you, we'll be on the phone with them, not the client or their clinician. And the other neat thing is that we actually let a client just pay a copay for their sessions while we cover the rest of the therapist's fee and then wait for reimbursement on the client's behalf. So that's really a way that we're different from a lot of the other people who are trying to, expedite and make the claim submission and management process easier, because our hunch was that even hearing, hey, you have out-of-network benefits, but you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for that check in the mail, isn't enough, right? And that's
Right.
kind of what we heard from people, right? That doesn't really help
Mm-hmm.
them access therapy today. And the reason a lot of clients would even see an in-network provider is because they just get to pay a copay. And so if we're able to kind of simulate and create that in-network experience for them while clinicians still get their full rate upfront, that's kind of like a win-win for both situations, right? And
Right.
so that's how that payment platform world works.
Yeah, that's great. I love the concept, and one of the things, and this I can say this from just my own experience, and I'm curious as to how things like this would be handled, particularly for therapists. I know I can think of an example where we had a clinician that was out of network with a particular insurance company. We gave the client a super bill. They paid for their session up front. We gave them the super bill. They sent it into their insurance company. And then the insurance company contacted us, the therapist, wanting all their credentialing stuff.
Mm.
So, yeah. So, how does that usually work with that sort of thing? So, it was almost like they were trying to force us to go through the credentialing process with that insurance company when we just wanted to remain, out of network.
Yeah, that's a bizarre experience. Typically, when we're
Uh-huh.
able to say, hey, a clinician wants to be out of network, it should be as simple as here's the super bill. I've made sure to put the client's diagnosis code. I've made sure to put a CPT code. Here are the sessions that we've had, and here's how much I've charged, and here's my NPI and practice information. That is
Mm-hmm.
enough for an out of network claim. At that point, you submit it to insurance, and they shouldn't ask any questions. To be fair, though, insurance can be finicky and honestly shady at times, right? So, what we've
Mm-hmm.
even seen recently is a lot of insurance companies asking for documentation, asking for notes and stuff like that, which typically just doesn't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, our hunch is that it is just their way of delaying and denying claims.
Yeah.
And so that's where, if we see this happening as a trend and as kind of like bulk claims asking for this, that's when we really go to bat for both the clinician and the client to figure out what's happening. And we get on the phone with insurance and we're like, why are you asking for this? What do you need from us? So that can at least be something that the clinician, the client doesn't need to handle. We're handling it for them. But it rarely happens that we need to enroll a provider to be an out of network, clinician. Typically, we're able to submit the Superbills and not have too much of a hassle in getting that approved.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that, do you also run into maybe insurance companies trying to renegotiate the rate?
Yeah, so we actually don't influence the rates at all, right? So we're not
Mm-hmm.
involved in basically saying, hey, like, we would love to do that. I would love to say, hey, like, let's make sure that, out of network rates are fair and, actually a good amount of money that clients are getting back. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of influence. We really just submit the claim. And so in the out
Mm-hmm.
of network setting, there's not much that we can do to really influence the rates that, people are
Right.
reimbursed.
Right. Right. Yeah. So what sort of, and this might be a hard question to answer. I don't know. What sort of percentage of people are getting reimbursed for their sessions and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the percentage is actually very high. It is, the first question we get is what percentage of people end up having out of network benefits, right? So just from the people who reach out to us or clinicians who come to us with their clients, about 70% of them end up having out of network benefits. And that might be a skewed number because, doesn't necessarily then mean that 70% of the United States has out of network benefits, right? So we try to
Mm-hmm.
educate on that. But if a client has a PPO plan, they typically and usually will have the out-of-network benefits. There are only few
Mm-hmm.
plans that don't have out-of-network benefits, like HMO plans don't have it, Medicare and Medicaid don't have it. But we always recommend that if you don't know if you have out-of-network benefits, just check. Just make sure to see if you have
Mm-hmm.
it. From
Right.
there, once we've been able to verify that a client has out of network benefits, it's pretty smooth sailing from there. So the denial rate is pretty low. I would say it's less than like about 5% or even less, like 2 to 3%. And at that point, it's usually just because there's like a small fix that we can make with the claim, resubmit it, and it kind of goes through after that. It's only when there's just like large scale that a provider or clinician or, insurance companies like, oh, like we're going to deny claims. And then at that point, we kind of need to figure out what's happening. But that rarely happens in the situations that we've seen.
Right. Yeah. So with I'm sure you've got also ways, maybe scripts, that kind of thing, of being able to explain to clients how all this works.
Yeah, we do. We actually have like a lot of just education on out-of-network benefits because we understand that it can feel new and complicated both for clinicians and clients. So we provide like, hey, here's how out-of-network benefits works. And like, even for clinicians who want to use Thrizer, there's scripts of how to explain Thrizer to your clients, right? And so the way that we typically like to explain it to clients, because, a lot of people don't understand how insurance works, is basically you have an insurance plan. If you see a clinician who is in network with you or, accepts your insurance, you will be using your in-network benefits. But just because you're seeing a therapist in this case who doesn't accept your insurance doesn't mean that you can't ask for reimbursement. And that's where the out-of-network benefits comes in. So you still have these benefits in your plan that even if you see a clinician outside of your network, you will be eligible to receive some relief from insurance. That, though, is a little bit more intensive on you to handle by yourself, right? That's where instead of, if you were seeing a therapist who's in network, they will take care of the insurance claim for you. They'll submit it to insurance. You don't have to worry about anything. You just pay a copay. Here, you have to ask for a Superbill. You have to submit it to insurance yourself, and you have to wait for a check. And so that's how we explain it. And at that point, clients are like, okay, I don't want to do all that. And then that's where we educate them on, hey, but here's where Thrizer can help you.
Right. You had mentioned about the copay. How does that work?
Yeah. So the way that out-of-network reimbursements work is basically insurance companies set this thing called an allowed amount. So an allowed amount is a very niche, like out-of-network reimbursement term. And what that means is that is the maximum they're willing to reimburse for a particular session. This allowed amount changes by client. It changes by even clinician licensures and geographies and everything. So that's that coveted number that we often, we don't get that before we submit a claim. We kind of have to wait for it after we submit a claim, but we're able to kind of estimate at it. But that allowed amount is a flat number. So it's not a percentage-based thing. It's like, even if a clinician charges $200 or $400 for a session, insurance can say, hey, but we're only going to cover up to $150, right? And then whatever the, reimbursement amount isn't covered, the difference between the clinician's rate and the reimbursement amount is what the client will end up owing. So let's say that allowed amount is $150, the clinician charges $200, the copay in that case would be $50. Or if the clinician charges $400, the allowed amount is still $150, they would pay $250 in that case, right? So it's really just a difference between the two. And it gets even more complicated because, a lot of times a client will have this thing called a co-insurance responsibility. So even if the insurance sets an allowed amount at $150, they might say, oh, but you're responsible for 20% of that $150, right? We're only going to cover 80% of that $150. So in that case, they only cover $120. The client's still responsible for $30, and there's still that $50. That's the difference between the $200 and $150. So the client is actually paying $80, right? And so the math can get a little confusing, but that's why we have an instant benefits calculator that does all of this for the client and the clinician so that they don't have to sit there and figure all of this out. And that's kind of the number that we present to them. We'll say, hey, you have a deductible. After you meet your deductible, your copay is estimated at $80. And that's where we do all the math for them.
Right. Yeah. So it's in using the platform, it's really, at least the way you're describing it, is almost like no different than using like in-network insurance. I mean, you pay the copay, the co-insurance, and then everything else is just handled on the back end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Sanjana, I need to be mindful of your time. Tell folks more about how they can find out about Thrizer, and also, I think you said that there's a free trial that you guys are offering as well.
Yeah. So we are offering a free trial for listeners of this podcast. So as a clinician, if you want to try out our payment platform, you can do so completely for free. We're letting you, try us out for no credit card fees for the first 2,500 in payments that you do. So that's a great kind of way to get your feet wet if you want to try out with one or two clients, see how the process works, check out our instant benefits calculator. It's kind of a great way to do that. And I know I've dropped a link with you, Gordon. So if you're able to share that with this podcast, but
Yes.
if not, you can also go to Thrizer.com and make sure you enter Gordon as your free trial code. So you'll be able to get that credit then.
Right. Well, that's so kind of you to offer that. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to find that easily. So any parting thoughts here as we kind of wrap things up?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I think this was, it's always I feel a sense of responsibility to share how out-of-network benefits work because there's just so much just mystery around it, right? And so I love these podcasts because we're able to actually break it down, do the math for people and walk them through it. And I forgot to mention the other service that we have. So if you did want to stay hands-off, I know we were talking about that a bit earlier, we also have a Superbill uploads option for you. So in that case, as a clinician, you stay completely hands-off. You can just give a client a Superbill. They can create their own Thrizer profile, verify their own benefits, and upload their Superbills onto that. So that way you're completely hands-off. So you don't have to build through Thrizer. In that case, too, we actually offer an instant reimbursement. So if they did want to say, hey, I don't want to wait 4 weeks for that check in the mail, I just want it right now, they can actually request it for an extra fee. And at that point, they get the reimbursement directly to their bank account in 1 to 2 days instead of waiting for that 4 to 6 weeks. So that's also an option available to you. So whatever, makes more sense for your practice, you have that flexibility to choose.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I'm so excited about this, and hopefully we'll have some more conversations here in the future. Well, a big thanks to Sanjana for being on the podcast. And I would encourage you to go over and check out Thrizer. I love this concept. And probably if I were to start a practice today and wanted it to be self-pay, I would make sure I had something like this on board, because I know in just my consulting with people and things that I hear from people around the country, one of the things that they run up against is people wanting to use their insurance, and they feel like they lose clients when they're not able to offer a solution to that. So anyway, check them out and go to Thrizer.com, and also use that promo code that Sanjana so graciously offered of just Gordon, Gordon. And also you'll find those links, as I said, in the show notes and the show summary here. And also be sure and check out my friend Ashley's online store, mentalhealthwaretn.com. Got lots of great stuff and swag there, and some great gift ideas as we move into the holiday season. And also big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They're the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice and absolutely could not operate without them. And as you've maybe heard from me before, I'm just always impressed with the different improvements and enhancements they're doing with their platform. And I just absolutely love being able to sponsor this podcast, but also just being able to say, yeah, it's a great product. It really is. So be sure and check them out. And you can go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. And again, use a promo code, which is my name, Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. And also, if you think about it, and if you will, take a minute to answer my survey question of what I wish I had known when I started my practice. And again, you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/ what I wish. And so I just tried to make it simple there. So looking forward to you being back with me again next week. I got some other great guests lined up. And thanks again for joining me. And be sure and take time to follow the podcast or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. Take care, folks. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.